Give it out to give hope to those who wanna live, and let them know what's real. Just think about the kids, think about the souls and the hearts I wanna find. A place of peace where all of mankind can finally breathe, spread their wings and sing songs of hope and what it all means. Yeah, I'm taking them back, these dreams that were mine, along with the cash. Those were my hopes, my dreams. That was then, this is now. In the final scene, we're living in the script. Far from a dream, far from home, and far from all the things that matter enough and take guts to fight for. You can let it pass and watch another war start but won't stop, cause the next one will come closer than you think. It might take your son. I'm going back, I'm going back, I'm going back for you. I'm going back, I'm going back to that town where they put them in the ground and making my peace, praying with my head down. I'm going back, yeah, I'm going back, yeah, I'm going back for you. I'm going back, yeah, I'm going back to that town where they put them in the ground and making my peace, praying with my head down. I'm going back. It's all real, nothing may change, but I'd rather go out fighting than live a life in vain. If I had to, I'd ride. If it came to, I'd die. But I ain't worried, cause I'll see you on the other side. This is full life, and it don't end, nah. Not for brothers or a hell of a friend. Part of me, I'm part of you, the part that feels to you. The heart that I have, I give to you. So no matter what they do, no matter what they say, no this, I'll never do it. Take the pay, I said, you can keep the cash, cause my brother I keep close in my corner, that's why I got the seat. And I got it just in time, they decided it was time to take another one from me, but not this time, not ever again. When I watch as they sin, the task force in to kill another friend. I'm going back, I'm going back, I'm going back for you. I'm going back, I'm going back to that town where they put them in the ground and making my peace, praying with my head down. I'm going back, yeah, I'm going back, yeah, I'm going back for you. I'm going back, yeah, I'm going back to that town where they put them in the ground and making my peace, praying with my head down. I'm going back.
The darkest before the dawn. There is nowhere to hide. They will find you. When you thought you were alone, there's only one hope. To find the one who can save the human race. To save Earth. To save them. To save the world for the better. One decision. One weapon. One leader. There's only one woman. She has been chosen.
Hey everyone, guess who's awake and alive today? It's me. And I lost my guest somewhere, but he showed up, so here he is. David, how are you?
All right, I hope.
You sound like me now. Gee, I hope I'm okay.
Yeah, well, you never know.
So, you have a lot of information that I wanted folks to actually get out there.
I do?
Yes, you do.
Oh, I see. Well, if I may be at your service, feel free to facilitate.
Well, you were part of something in New Hampshire where there's something about, this pesky old little original 13th Amendment.
Well, that's partially how it appears. To me, it's the pesky little old original Constitution that disappeared.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So if you and I write a contract, a Constitution between April and David, and then I take it home and change a few words and delete a few things, it's no longer the contract.
It's no longer the same contract.
Well, it isn't any kind of a contract, because I certainly didn't agree to it. Or you didn't agree to it. What they did was, that's what they mean by Constitution for these United States of America, and then it changed to Constitution of the United States. What that means is anything that is something of, meaning son of, daughter of April, that means that daughter or son came from April. So the corporation called United States actually created its own constitution, where originally the organic constitution was a directive from the people to the said government agent, and it was their orders on how to behave and what to do and what they can't do. Right. But United States Corporation created their own corporate charter, their own constitution. Now, they took an oath to it, but, we say, hey, we have them over the barrel because we have them on oath. But really and truly, their oath isn't written properly. It's cleverly written so that it's almost an oath to nothing. And people have to learn what to do to disqualify that oath so as to disqualify these people from their office. So,
right.
That's right.
Well, the original 13th actually had something interesting in it because it's kind of redundant. Because what it talks about is already in the Constitution. It just didn't really have any teeth.
Right.
And the 13th gave it the teeth. So
technically it still doesn't have teeth only because the people who it would apply to are not any government employees. They're employees of a foreign corporation under the United Nations and the International Monetary Fund. United States of America 4, it's called United States of America 4 because the first 3 bankruptcies of this corporation have been discharged. It is 100% a foreign corporation.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm not too wound up about that. But that's because, I like the fact that, we have CAFRs now. Comprehensive annual financial audits that, come out every single year for your school district, your police department, your city, your county, your state, all the way up to the UN.
Right.
So I think that's awesome.
Right. That's why, really, people need to quit worrying about this corporation and get on with their lives as people and not as U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens have relinquished all their rights to get benefits from this stupid corporation. There's an occupation on the District of Columbia by the British Accreditation Registry, otherwise known as the Bar Association, which Article 13 would prevent these characters from ever being in any government.
Yes, it would.
Right. You have to consent to be under their jurisdiction, which many of us are not in consent.
Well, the bar, when they first started out, when they were looking for their charter and everything, they admitted to be a communist organization.
Oh, the word?
And now they have infiltrated every single branch of government.
Well, it's not a government, and it's say that.
You know what I'm saying.
I'm saying it's just by habit people say that. It's a government for them, not for us. Then the other question that comes up is, well, where did you get that British Accreditation Registry mumbo jumbo? That's not true. Bar means the barristers and all this and that. Well, there's a story behind that too. back in the 1700s, before any Articles of Confederation or Constitution, people who were accused of these crimes that were not actually crimes, if they were tried here in the colonies, no juror would convict them. So they had to transport them back to England for trial. And then between that problem and doing it here, there, back and forth, they decided to create in Boston, in fact, I believe it was 1861, so don't quote me, but 1761, I'm sorry. They created the British accreditation, or accredited registry, so that the barristers who conducted the fleecing of the colonists, probably right down to these alleged judges, as they would call them, magistrates, had to be accredited by the British bar, which, I don't know how many people are prepared for this, but that's all under the Vatican, every single shred of it. And it sounds too hard for people to believe, but oh well. There's abundant, copious amounts of proof to that.
Yeah, well, so far, anytime I look for something to verify, because you know how I am, gotta verify it.
I quoted today, due diligence.
Yes.
I think we should change the spelling to D-O diligence.
I do too. I do too. I was actually contemplating that the other day when I accidentally spelt do instead of D-U-E. I spelled it as do.
Well, you're going to have to copyright that, April. I mean, that would definitely be a we roar kind of a, property.
Yeah. That's a good idea, actually.
In fact, I came up with we raw, R-A-W, in honor of my Bostonian accent. We raw, as in, there it is. All right. Anyway.
Oh, it's too much. So, but what you guys did, you and Gus and a few others, I think, one of my very favorite people who have ever served, and my dog is barking because the kid just got home. I think, Stella, what you guys did in New Hampshire was amazing. Do you want to go into that, and I'll mute so nobody has to hear Wally right now?
Well, the thing that Stella did, and she did quite a few good things, by the way. Can you still hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Stella did many good things. In fact, Stella actually defied the corruption in many areas, and she even defied her own party leadership, which one would have to. Anyone who's 100% party, even 99% is a lot more forgivable than 100%. They tried to twist her arm into doing a lot of things she didn't want to do. And she's there to serve the people. I mean, I know Stella very well. We've spent many, 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 many hours together. And all she cares about is serving the people. That's it. And that's what's missing. Most people in state of, meaning state of New Hampshire, state of Pennsylvania, state of California, they don't know how to be republic of. So they've been completely co-opted. And as you've read, especially with my work with Stella in House Bill 638, the bills, petitions, and resolutions put together by representatives and their constituents are commandeered, or I should say hijacked, by the Office of Legislative Services, which doing business as is a private corporation inside the State House, and it's all bar attorneys. So the bar attorneys are attorneying your whole life over to statutes, codes, policies, regulations, procedures, and case law, as if case law is going to replace common law. So that was part of the big fight with that bill. Also, very important to touch on something to do with Stella here, Stella Tremblay, Representative Tremblay, is under Articles 31 and 32, part, the first, which is the Bill of Rights in the New Hampshire Constitution, is the petitions for redress of grievances, where the legislature shall convene so the people to exercise their rights. Now, you notice the term shall, the term people, and the term rights. Now, didn't say persons, didn't say corporations, individuals. It said people, and shall, and rights. So, what has happened is, at one time where people ruled over their government, Articles 31 and 32 have effectively been removed from any function in state of. Why? Because state of is a private corporation. People have to understand, or comprehend, I should say. They cannot rule over their government as a republic if they're busy trying to rule over state of. State of is under United States, and United States is under UN and International Monetary Fund. So Stella tried to hijack the process back away from the Bar Association, and a blundering fool named Representative Steve Valancourt tabled it. And, in Stella's...
Sorry, that needs to be quoted again. The blundering fool?
He's a blundering fool. I mean, I could go on and on. Sorry, I almost lost my train of thought with that one.
I'm sorry, but that was too much.
I think Stella wrote her letter of resignation and went overboard, kind of bent over backward on a moment of decency and to be gracious. She decided to praise Steve Valancourt, which I think that, from her perspective, I support it. However, we are still alive, and I'm not going to allow him to sit around thinking that he deserves any kind of an apology for anything. He is a human wrecking ball, and he's also the subject of prosecution for violation of his oath of office. Also, I think it's House Bill 135, where he participated in undermining the rights of people. There was a bill to kill the Stand Your Ground legislation that was drafted, or actually passed, I should say, a couple of years before. Stand your ground means that you have the right to stand your ground, protect yourself, your family, your loved ones, your property, what have you.
Yeah, that's in the Second Amendment, too.
Right, but it's
so
all...
let's, be really redundant with this stuff and just make new laws that say, yeah, okay, you can have a gun in your house. No kidding. Thank you for your wanted permission? I don't know.
They're not there to undermine the rights of the people. Number one. Number two, it goes beyond common sense. And when I address the legislature in the well, they call it, that's the hall where they all meet. There are 400 representatives. And before you're done there, you're filling up an enormous room. So that bill came up and it filled up that hall, which means it was too big to gather the people in an office building room. So I told them, I said, you know that this isn't going to work. You know that this has nothing to do with people. So really all you're doing is you're undermining the rights of people. And they're puppets. The 400 representatives, and I'll say all but maybe 4 of them, are all puppets of the Bar Association. I'm going to work very hard at driving a wedge between the Bar Association and the representatives. Also, and I'll share this with you for your show, much of what I do is to drive a wedge between the Bar Association and law enforcement. Because law enforcement, they're really code enforcement for municipalities. And where do they get off harassing people? Well, they're listening to their prosecutors. Well, hello, their prosecutor is a bar attorney. And the bar attorney prosecutor is listening to a hearings administrator, which they call them judges. They're not judges, by the way. Not one guy in a black robe in a district court is a judge. He is a hearings administrator in what is a dispute resolution center for government employees, which there is no longer government, private corporation employees, I should say, and then public corporations that are incorporated with state of. So they have no business even talking to you, by the way. And then if you are crazy enough to walk into one of these courts, they're going to pretend under presumption, under martial law, that you are in consent to their operation. So then you get to the state police, and the state police listen to the attorney general, another bar attorney, and the county sheriff listens to the county attorney, which by law, by the way, is a hot subject in New Hampshire. A county attorney is an elected attorney for the people. And that county attorney is supposed to represent the people, especially dealing with the grand jury, otherwise known as the fourth branch of government. But what has happened is the Bar Association in New Hampshire, which is run by usually the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, has co-opted the county attorney to be required to be in the Bar Association. So all law enforcement, all the way up to federal level, they're all taking their marching orders from bar attorneys. In what they call Congress, it's not a Congress. It's, you could call it McDonald's if you want, because it's a private corporation. They're all bar attorneys. The president and CEO of a bankrupt corporation called United States, which would be Barry Obama, he's a bar attorney. They're all bar attorneys. And the problem is the people are so preoccupied with their, the stuff in their lives that they're not paying attention to what's going on. So they're losing everything. They're basically being harvested for their sweat equity or their energy. They're supposed to minister their energy to their own use. Instead, they're ministering it over to what would be legally classified as a guardian. So when you walk into a court and you submit to that court, you're basically appointing them as your guardian. Right. So they don't tell you that, which is
you're
why
proving your own incompetence when you get that attorney.
Oh, well, not only that, to touch on that comment that you just made, when you walk into a court with a bar attorney, the attorney is an officer of that court. Therefore, you are a ward of the court, W-A-R-D. And the judge, hearings administrator, takes quiet notice of the fact that you are, honestly speaking, an incompetent imbecile. Who else would need to be represented by the ward of the state? A ward of the state would be an incompetent. When you walk into court with an attorney, you are no different than a resident at a mental hospital. Now, we could go on about that and how it affects you and your relationship with the Attorney General and what you perceive to be your property or your assets, which you don't own. You don't own any of those. As long as you're using...
I do.
Huh?
I do.
Well, that might be you, but I'm saying the generic you. Most people don't own their homes, their land, their cars, their anything. They don't own anything because it's all set up in trust because they're attempting to pay their debt down with instruments of debt, which are Federal Reserve notes. Those are all instruments of debt.
Right.
So how do you pay a debt with a debt? It's a promissory note, therefore it's a trust. That's why you don't own. Most people, if they think they paid their house off, they need to go run and look at the paperwork. That's not a title. That's a deed. And you notice on the deed, they'll see their name as the tenant. That's why they're paying property tax, because they can't own it. You can't own anything if you're paying property tax on it. Otherwise, it's not yours. You're paying use as if it was a government commercial piece of property. So, hopefully that will provoke some thought. Otherwise, it would tie up the next 3 hours. So what Stella did was, in a short period of time, she realized exactly what she stepped into. She thought she was going there to help the people. And really what she found out was she walked into Disney World, where, you have a place called the House of Legislature, which it's French fries at McDonald's. And then you have a place called the Senate, which is milkshakes and beverages at McDonald's. So they call it the Senate, they call it the legislature, they call it this, they call it that, but none of that exists. And House Bill 638, which would be to reintroduce the lawful publication of the Constitution, especially Article 13, would have put an end to all of that. But the profound stupidity and ignorance of Representative Stephen Valencourt caused him to table it so that Stella Tremblay didn't even have a chance to talk. And someone got a hold of him and other people, and I would bet my front seat in hell that whoever got a hold of him was a bar attorney, because I hear the arguments that they make. I've seen what they did to that bill. They changed it several times to make sure it wouldn't get into publication the way it was originally written. And I believe I included the original content of that bill and the explanations to it in writing to you. If you haven't received it, just let me know. I'll send it to you, and then you can post it on your ReRoar website.
Yeah, that's what we need to do. What we need to do is let folks exactly know how you got that actually into being even heard, the whole 13th Amendment.
How did we begin?
Yeah, because people are, mostly stuck with, well, I don't know how to do this, so I'm not going to do anything. And just to clarify,
Stella sponsored it. We talked about it at length, and I wrote it. I wrote that. And what came out into publication certainly was not what I wrote. You should have seen the first representation of it. It was just a bloody awful mess. I want you to know, for the sake of your listeners, that I'm not usually this free with my tongue when I'm speaking in a public forum, because I'm just not. It doesn't help. But I would imagine most of the people who listen to your show are informed parties. So what I'm telling you is, the reason I preface my following remark is, it's dirty. The Bar Association is a despicable bunch of rats. Their entire job is to turn your estate back over to the Crown and to deceive you while they're doing it. They don't tell you anything. They don't inform you of what they're actually doing. The rat on the bench is not a judge. It's a hearings administrator for the bankruptcy. They conceal, protect, and preserve the bankruptcy. They don't want you to know what it is or that it's there. Because if you started to know what the facts were, they would be out on their butts immediately. So people support this hostile foreign occupation, which they are at war against us. And I'm sure you could vouch for the fact that the Trading with the Enemy Act was amended by FDR so as to make U.S. citizens the enemy. So they treat you as the enemy. You're their harvest. You're their property. It's a farm. It's under the Crown. The Crown swallowed what we used to have as a nation back up in 1871. They set up a corporation. It was actually the British Virginia Colony Corporation that changed their names to United States of America. And they occupied 10 square miles of the District of Columbia, taken from Virginia and Maryland, Virgin Mary, for the Vatican. Right, because, if you read the laws and the history, you'll see that the Vatican owns them outright. What they do, every single step that they take, every little energy that they exert, every bit of it is to steal from you. You're not allowed to keep your own energy because they sucker you into giving it to them. So, the Office of Legislative Services is a comfy little position in the State House in New Hampshire because of the fact that, 396 of the representatives are totally lost. They have no idea what they're doing. And when you even show it to them, they look at it like a deer in the headlights, and they just, well, what am I going to do with that? And well, if those are the powers that be, what are we supposed to do? Or, well, how do you change that? So we might as well do the best we can with it. Patriotism and Americans and all that, it's all but gone. I mean, it's almost all completely gone. I'm sure you encounter that daily, so.
Well, I think patriotism needs to be redefined, personally.
Well, maybe so. I wouldn't argue that, or against that.
Because in the area that I'm in, I understand that, a lot of it's due to inbreeding in this area, because nobody has left the area, and those that did haven't come back. So, yeah, they think, patriotism is hot dogs and apple pie and football. Make sure you got your favorite team, and you watch every game of those.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
The fireworks, the 4th of July celebration, they play the national anthem. You know when the national anthem was written, April, by any chance? I don't know. You're not required to know. I'm just wondering if you did.
I actually don't know that, but I do know who wrote the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah. Well, what happened back in history, let's go back to the beginning, after the Constitution/bankruptcy document was created, which is all it is. It is where the republics turned into states, and they gave up part of their sovereignty to create this central government. And not long after that came through, Alexander Levine, more well known as Alexander Hamilton, created the first central bank, which was connected to the British banks, the Rothschild Bank. And as he explained, that the more you have in debt, the more you're worth. Well, that might be true in the numbers game, but it certainly wasn't true in reality, because people started to go down the tubes after the war. They lost their banks. That charter ran out in 20 years, and that charter ran out in 1811. And the Congress at the time had no interest in renewing it, nor did the president. And by then, the states were well on their way to passing Article 13. In fact, New Hampshire passed it in December 9th of 1812. So that's what the War of 1812 was all about, was to get those banks back. And that's when the national anthem was written, during one of those big battles. They were trying to hold that flag up. There were dead bodies holding the flagpole up.
Yeah, I do know that story. At the fort, they ran out of people, and it ended up being women and kids that ended up holding that flag up at the end, on top of all the dead bodies.
Yeah. Now, just a rumor, because I haven't verified this. I didn't do diligence, April. But from what I hear, the 1812 overture was a salute to the Rothschilds. So I have to do some digging, but I was going to show that. But
dig that one out.
Yeah, there's a gentleman named Paul Parent, Parent. He has the gardening club, I think they call it, every Sunday at 6 o'clock. He's on a radio show in the Boston area. And every Memorial Day, he plays and reads this thing about the national anthem. And
the guy who wrote it was actually on one of the British ships.
Yeah, Francis Scott Key was his name.
Yeah, right. And he had actually gone to the ship to make a deal to get their prisoners, or people, that were on the boat.
Well,
and
the guards,
this was his viewpoint from the ship,
right.
Of the battle.
Mm-hmm.
And that the whole time, the flag was still up, even though it was, hit with cannons and everything. For some reason, it was still up. It was tilted, but it was still up.
Right. The flag was still there. Right.
Yep.
So the War of 1812, from everything that I've seen and read, we lost it. It was called a draw, but we lost it. The troops were already there because the troops were already allowed in, and the troops left with their weapons. So when you leave with your guns, you didn't lose, okay?
Right. And
they got their banks back, and it wasn't until Jackson came along that the banks went down again.
Yeah, he killed the bank.
Right. So
I actually don't think he actually killed them because they would still not be here if he actually did that. I think he put them to sleep for a little while.
Well, the thing is the banks had infiltrated all parts of the government. And then the War of Northern Aggression, otherwise known as the Civil War,
or as I call it, the war with no ending.
Right. And they created a situation that would finally finish off everything, the whole shooting match. And, in fact, I just included a video over to you guys last night that touched on that. It's a 10-minute video. The history of that. So now, here's another thing that I would like to suggest to the people who are listening, is we in America have a very short history, but you can't just know that. You have to keep mind of it. 200 years is a very short amount of time. It's only a few generations. And compared to European history, it's really short. So who could possibly maintain all of this agenda against the people in a continuum other than the Crown or the Vatican? Well, no one. I mean, that's who's doing it all. So in this late date of 2013, we had a reintroduction to bring back Article 13 in the original Constitution, which was House Bill 638 in New Hampshire. Stella Tremblay sponsored the bill. Lars Christensen sponsored the bill also, co-sponsored. And so did Alfred Baldessaro, another representative. And someone, I think, convinced Al that it was never ratified, which it was.
Well, I have the evidence of that.
Yeah.
I actually went through the congressional records backwards to find it.
Right.
And boy, when I finally found it, I was jumping off the ceiling.
I don't have it. You have, but if I have other stuff, but if you want, we could certainly trade and swap,
Oh, yeah.
What we would call exhibits or displays of evidence. And then I'll post it on my Facebook page as well as other places. But this is going to have to be done under international law. What I'm going to do is I'm going to forward something to you in confidence in your own private email, and I want you to take a look at it, and then your eyebrows are going to go way up, and you're going to say, well, hello. There it is. That's what I'm going to start doing.
Okay.
It's about international law. Hello. If we know that the United States of America 4 is under the United Nations and the IMF, then that's international. So we can't be dealing with it here in their courts because their courts are Disneyland. That's not a judge. He's a hearings administrator. His job is specific. He can only do that which he has jurisdiction to do. So these aren't the ways to do it, not in these courts. So I'm going to do it by contract under law, merchant law, and admiralty law, which is what they are held to. So we have to get this back. I'm going to dig and find a way to get the Constitution back into publication, even if I have to put it myself.
Well, the mere fact that the original 13th was printed in various state law books, including United States military law book.
Right.
For over 50 years.
And in territories.
Can you turn down your speakers? I'm getting an echo.
No, maybe it's just the position I'm in.
Oh, okay.
Right. Even
I think it's gone.
The territory of Wyoming posted it as late as 1876. The beautiful part about Wyoming is they posted what people think today is the 13th Amendment as the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment is the 15th Amendment. But, you know...
Oh, you mean the 14th that created United States citizens?
Yeah. Now, that's what got Andrew Johnson thrown out, pretty much, you know that. He looked at the 14th Amendment and says, this is BS. Hello, this re-enslaves the Negroes and enslaves the white people. Yeah,
it doesn't abolish slavery. In fact, it clarifies that the government, if you're convicted of any crime, anything that they say is a crime, if you're convicted of it, you can be put under involuntary servitude.
Mm-hmm.
It took away my ability of having, the choice of, you know what, I want to move over here, so I'm going to find someone to work for that will pay off my debts to get here. That's that's voluntary servitude. They took that ability away.
Well, they just co-opt you by your consent. They just steal your energy, and they remove your ability to get remedy. Because you are the enemy under Trading with the Enemy Act, they don't reveal the remedy to their statutes to you. You have to find it, and that's what a lot of attorneys are trained to do.
Right, and that's how we have become residents of our state as opposed to being a citizen of our state.
Well, you don't want to be a citizen of the state either, because you have to find out that being a state is not a good thing.
Well, here in Pennsylvania, I did find how people got their citizenship here, and they actually gave an oath of allegiance. It's voluntary. If you didn't do it, you were considered to be an inhabitant, one that lives within the metes and bounds of the state.
Which you'd rather be an inhabitant. You don't want to be a citizen of a state. Right.
Well, you needed to be a citizen of a state if you wanted to run for sheriff or Congress or something.
Well, then, while you're employed by said state,
right?
But remember, when you go back to the origin of state, it's not a good thing. It's more of the stuff from the king. So when you convert a republic over to a state of, it becomes an ugly thing. I've claimed the metes and bounds of the entire American landmass from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, east and west coast, and I'm well on my way out. I'm doing, everything I can to disassociate myself from any adhesion contracts, what have you. I want nothing to do with it.
Well, I do have a question regarding what you guys were doing up in New Hampshire, because it was reintroducing the original 13th. At minimum, just taking acknowledge of it. And it got tabled. And what was the reason that they tabled it? Because I did go look at through, why things would get tabled. And it clearly says for an emergency reason, that something else came up, so we got to table this right now because we got to handle this over here.
Yeah, well, I'll have to talk about that later, because that has to get yanked off the table. The problem is Stella's gone. The people across America lost when Stella resigned from being a state representative in New Hampshire. People don't realize
I agree.
that. Stella made world fame by introducing House Bill 638. That was the most important thing that anyone could ever have done in the history of being, of them being a state representative. They all pale in comparison to Stella Tremblay. She, as I refer to her, as she was the lone dog soldier. I don't know.
Well, she's just awesome anyway.
Well, yeah,
just as a human being, she's just absolutely awesome. But to have her there on you guys' side like that,
we
short of a miracle.
A lot too, because she's from Italy. My whole family's right off the boat from Italy. I grew up in that culture, and we always had a fun relationship.
And sadly, she is not eligible to become president.
No. Well, no one is, no. Now, I don't know if you know this, but you know that the elected president of these United States of America's job is to appoint the president of the United States government corporation. Did you know that? So the corporation is foreign. It has nothing to do with us. No one wants to be in it. No one would want to be a U.S. citizen. No one would want to be a registered voter. You don't want to be. You want nothing to do with it. It's a bankrupt, failing corporation. And what they are attempting to do, and to make a long story really short, if you want to see what they're doing here, all you have to do is study the last 40 years of Argentina. Okay? What they did in Argentina is almost exactly what they're doing here. You know, let's go back. Remember the Falklands War crisis back in, I think it was the 70s or early 80s? Hello?
I'm trying to remember his name.
Whose name?
And I'm going blank. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going blank. I love this guy, and I get emails from him all the time. He's from Argentina, and he's telling the Americans exactly, hey, look, we already went through this. This is what you're doing. This is the results. Look at us.
Well,
I'm just totally blank on his name right now.
They created all of this artificial debt, which is based upon nothing. You're not a party to the debt. And then they passed it off to the people. And then they shipped everyone's jobs overseas, which is just what they did here. And now you can't pay that unsustainable debt anyway. Now I understand that in Argentina you have to buy bonds or you'll be under arrest, imprisoned. So they're really raping everybody. And the problem is the people. The people it really is true. It's the people's fault. They're so obsessed with baseball, football, hockey, Dancing with the Stars, American Idol, Budweiser, you name it. They are paying no attention to anything going on around them. And it's right under their nose. They watch CNN, they watch Fox as if that's the alternative opinion, which it isn't.
No, it's the same ticker tape.
It's all network media. It's corporate regime ragtime media. And the same corporations that own, Uncle Sam own the media. Hello. Reuters is somehow connected to own Associated Press, and who owns Reuters other than Rothschilds? Ultimately, you should look at the fabric of the corporate structure in the Federal Reserve. The problem is the people. They're good slaves. They're good little slaves. They get up, they do their mundane tasks. They register, R-E-G-I-S, register their car over to the state. As a state employee, they have a license. They need a license to travel because they're good little slaves. They go to work. They pay a huge amount of their sweat equity or their wages over to be income. Taxes, which it's not income, they're not taxable. When they come home and they live in their little dwelling that's not theirs, they're just paying on it with their energy through the Federal Reserve, which are instruments of debt. So their entire lives, from the time they get up until the time they get up, including when they're sleeping, is dedicated to absolute fraud. And it's all at the hands of this stinking bar association. The most important thing people need to do is to distance themselves from the IRS. The IRS is the Federal Alcohol Administration. It was to protect the petroleum producers back in the early 1900s. And once Prohibition was over, they took off to the territory of Puerto Rico under the Secretary of Treasury of Puerto Rico. It's a third-party bookkeeper and collection agent for the foreign banks. The IRS isn't any more a government or a corporation than I am. I mean, they fool the hell out of people. They scare them. And people need to just shut them down. Stop paying taxes. Stop it, because you don't owe taxes. It's unlawful to levy men. Living, breathing men, in other words. If you're a U.S. citizen, you're not a man. You are a piece of property. You are a U.S. corporate property, period. And the best thing to do is to abandon the thought that anything other than that is true. That's why the statutes at large were produced back in the late 1800s, so you could expatriate to be an American national. Well, hello. If you're expatriating to be an American national, what are you expatriating from? A foreign corporation. Now, the sad part is if I said this same thing to 1,000 people, 999 of them will just look up and stare around the room as if they're following a fly, and then go right back to their mundane lives of corporate slavery. And that's the problem. The people have been effectively dumbed down. Uncle Sam won. United Nations runs the public school. United Nations is running you now. Agenda 21, hello, take a look at it. They're depriving you of everything. They're poisoning you. They're fluoridating your water. Only fools think that fluoride is for your teeth. That's a fool that thinks that. If it's for your teeth, why are you drinking it? Yeah, it's
because it knows where to go. It goes through your whole system and goes just to your teeth. It's smart stuff.
It's to their teeth so they can chew up your brain. What they do is they use your pineal gland as chewing tobacco. Then they put enough mercury as preservative called thimerosal into the vaccinations for your kids.
Yep.
So when they're born, it goes past, the blood-brain barrier hasn't been totally developed yet, which is why autism was 1 in 5,000, now it's 1 in 150. But what it is they're calling it autism, in my view. It's really not autism, it's mercury poisoning. Each vaccination has more mercury in it than is allowable for a 250-pound man. And that man has a blood-brain barrier. So boys get it easier, because boys' testosterone allows that chemical to pass through the brain barrier more easily.
Well, if folks really want to know the scam that's running rampant regarding immunizations, my kid's not immunized.
Yeah, VacTruth.com.
I have her, I've filled out, the strong belief or whatever it is I have to fill out, for school or whatever. Got her a new doctor because she doesn't like the one that we had. He's kind of creepy anyway. But, I digress. Took her to a new doctor, chick, and it was just for a regular checkup. That's, required and this and that. Okay, fine, no big deal. The doctor refused to see her because she wasn't immunized.
Well, you know who the doctor is, don't you? The doctor is state of.
Well, what's really funny is this doctor went on about, I could be sued and I can't afford to get sued because I have my medical, her doctoring debts. And she's got a mortgage and this and that. Basically giving me a sob story of, she'll get sued. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what happened to the patient-doctor confidentiality? How would anyone know that she's not immunized? How would another patient know this?
The doctor just admitted that the Hippocratic Oath went out the window, didn't she?
Yeah, she did.
But she needs to be exposed because she does not serve the patient. She's not a doctor. From now on, she's not a doctor. All she is
well, it's a scam because let's say my kid did bring some illness in. Well, since all of her other patients are immunized, it wouldn't hit them, right?
Yeah, but you're talking common sense, which is not applicable here.
Right. Well, here's the other thing with the school. They also said, okay, well, because the law says we have to let her in, but if there's an outbreak, she can't come. And it's like, okay.
Good. I want her there.
Why would there be an outbreak since all your other kids are immunized, though?
Well,
how would there be an outbreak?
Vaccinations,
If the vaccines do what they're supposed to do, there would be no outbreak, right? I don't need to worry about it.
They're trying to kill your genetic strain. They put nasty stuff in those vaccinations, and it includes, viruses, fetal tissue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There's all kinds of nasty stuff in there.
Yep.
Right. And go to vactruth.com, and you'll get an idea. That's just the start. I just named one website. Go to vactruth.com and poke around in there. And do not let any jackass stick a needle in your kid.
Exactly.
Right, because
here's, again, the Hippocratic Oath, the hypocrisy oath, goes out the window because they know the damages that can occur from these vaccines, but they insist on doing it anyway.
You made a mistake. Their hypocrisy oath didn't go out the window. It was the Hippocratic oath that went out the window.
Yeah. But, I mean, they know that this can injure you, but let's do it anyway. And part of their oath is not to harm anyone.
Well, they violated the Hippocratic oath. They just need to be exposed. And what I'm going to send to you today, like I said, it's for your eyes only. But you're going to use the structure of it to put an end to said hypocrisy doctor. You'll use that format to put an end to the doctor. Believe me, when you see it, your face is going to fall off and hit the floor. Put a pillow on the floor under your face.
Okay, I'll just lay down before I open it.
Yeah, face up might help. Yeah. Really, it's taken me years and years to dig up what I need to do to stop this, and it's going to do a lot of other things too. I'll talk to you about that in private later. But as far as your listeners go, I would say that probably the main subject of Stella Tremblay, House Bill 638, Article 13. These are all important to everyone. And if you're trying to provide a service to the people, that's the most important stuff to stay on top of is House Bill 638. That needs to be resurrected somehow. The problem is,
it needs to be put into all the other states as well. It'd be great if we could, organize this to where it's happening in all the states at the same time.
Yeah, the problem is that most of the states have paid legislature. Most of them are bar attorneys.
Right.
And getting the onesie-twosie reps is very difficult.
Well, I'm just stuck at refusing to believe that every single one of those attorneys knows really what's going on.
Well, they don't know what's going on. The best way to lie to the people is to lie to your attorneys. I have a friend who's a law professor at Suffolk University, and he said, we haven't taught law in probably over 100 years. They don't teach law. They teach case law. They teach people how to negotiate and bargain. They teach plea bargaining. They teach statutes, codes, regulations, policies, procedures, you name it. And what they do is they're fleecing the people through the police departments.
Yeah.
The police have absolutely no authority to pull anyone over who's traveling. They only have authority over commerce and government employees.
Or if an injury to another person occurs.
Well, what injured party was there if you went 10 miles an hour over a recommended commercial?
I know that. But if you went 10 miles over the hour and crashed into someone's fence, then there's an injury.
Right, but then that injured party has to be the one to complain. So what they do is they try to take that away from you, too, so that if you decide not to press charges...
They're going to do it anyway.
State of is going to press charges anyway.
Yeah, and they're going to do it under the people's name.
Oh, no, they're going to do it under state of.
Right, but when you look at, like in Pennsylvania, it's the Commonwealth versus whatever. What that really means is the people versus whatever. They're doing it on behalf of all of the people in the state.
Right, but no people are parties to that contract.
Right, but that's how they get around it.
Well,
by claiming that they represent all the people.
They're faking it. It's called fraud.
Yeah.
Right. They're not getting around anything. They're just perpetrating fraud because no one knows about three things.
Well, I haven't had a license for over 5 years. I have been pulled over. I have not been arrested or ticketed, and my private modern-day conveyance, which is known as a car or a truck, it also has not been arrested,
Well,
a.k.a. impounded.
It's not registered.
Well, it is because, hubby does work in commerce. He does get compensated when he travels. So, we are actually abiding the law.
Well, that's his truck, if he's using it for commerce. But if he's using it to earn his ability to eat, that's not commerce.
Right, but he does have to go out of town, so instead of, renting a vehicle to get to where he needs to go, a lot of times he'll just, use
Is he working for a corporation or is he working for himself?
Corporation.
All right, well then, are they paying him to use that car?
He gets compensated when he does that, yes.
That's different from it being their car. So, you might want your own car without a registration. Because once they register it, they can take it. It belongs to the state once it's registered.
Well,
and that goes for property too. You don't bring when you convert your land to your silver to land. You don't buy or purchase it. You convert it.
Right.
And you
equal
don't
exchange. There's no profit.
Do not bring it to the registrar of deeds. And people will say, well, you have no business giving legal advice. That is also BS. My right to give legal or lawful advice is the same place where they get their right to give legal or lawful advice, because these attorneys and judges don't have a license to operate. All they have is a private union bar card. That's it. They don't have anything that they think they do. In fact, Every time I deal with one of them, I am inches and moments away from snapping cuffs on them myself, because I don't want them on my landmass. I don't think they belong here. They're hostile enemy occupiers. A bar member, a bar attorney, is a fraud, and he is an enemy occupier. Period.
Whether he knows it or not, it doesn't change the fact.
Right. In 1950, Congress decided that there were communists and enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's in I include it with my 15 statutes at large whenever I send them anything. Did you know that, for instance, the district court, which is not a district court, that is near your house, when a cop pulls you over and gives you a ticket, he doesn't have authority or jurisdiction, so what he's doing is he's giving you a notice of an offer for contract.
Mm-hmm.
And you have 72 hours to rescind that offer. Then, if they decide to prosecute you under a breach of contract, they have to go to the United States District Court and jury to get permission to prosecute you. And the jury has to be convinced that you are a corporation. And you have to be notified before, during, and after through the Secretary of State, because they're a foreign corporation, and the go-between middleman is the Secretary of State. So they can't even deal with you. They can't even talk to you. Bar attorneys are not allowed to talk to living people. They're not allowed to even talk to you. So whenever you get suckered into, like, something gets sent to your house that says April H. Rain in all capital letters, you just write on the letter, refuse for fraud. No one by that name lives here. And for that process to take place in that courtroom, as they call it, there has to be a trustee present. So when it goes forward without you being there, they're telling you that there was a trustee there. So what the trustee did was perpetrate fraud against that straw man. That's called theft of credit. Then you need to get the 1040 form and report them to the IRS, because they're stealing your energy. That energy is supposed to be for your benefit, not theirs. They're the trustees. They're trying to convert you into being the trustee when you're the beneficiary to the trust. And all people have to do is go read House Joint Resolution 192. And
I've got it on my computer.
There it is.
I do have it.
Right, but they need to read it until they get it. That's the whole thing. Most people, like I said, they're good slaves. They wander about. They pay all kinds of their energy to do things that they're entitled to anyway.
Well, ingrained habits we've learned from childbirth. Ask mom and dad if you can go to the park. You go to school, you have to ask if you can use the bathroom of all things. Just go.
Here's
Get up and go.
Dads do. Your parents, my parents, they thought that they were good U.S. citizens, which, brief segue quickly, at one time, especially in California, I use as an example, when you came here from another land, you had an option to be U.S. or a state citizen, and most people assumed that being a U.S. citizen would be a better thing, it would be more encompassing, but it wasn't. It's actually a worse thing. But my parents thought that they were good U.S. citizens, so they thought they needed a license for marriage. Hello, who needs a license to get married other than military personnel? Because that straw man in all capital letters is in the Navy. He's a shipwrecked sailor. That's the guy who touched land once through the footprints on the birth certificate. Okay, so they applied, meaning they begged for permission for a thing under law, merchant law, called sexual commerce. And the issue of sexual commerce is the infant or the child. So your mother took the baby home, but she abandoned the infant. And the infant is that resident or that military guy, the Navy guy called Mr. That straw man in all capital letters on the birth certificate. Because what sits in its birth but a ship? Okay, so he is the vessel for the state to use for your benefit. But what they're doing is they're wresting control of it. So after 7 years, that vessel that straw man gets put up and reinvested for the benefit as a service to the country, so to speak, to make a long story short. And then at 7 years old, your parents didn't know that they had to claim that. So
on the birth certificate, it says mother/informant.
Informant to the Federal Reserve Bank that your new tax slave has just had birth. Right. So now if you look, I don't know about where you live, but in New Hampshire, you'll look at Chapter 7 in the revised statutes, and you'll see something very interesting that goes right under people's noses, but they don't catch it. You'll see Attorney General, all the way to the right is County Attorney, which has, like I said, has been co-opted to be a bar attorney, because that's an elected official. And then right in the middle, you'll see the Director of Charitable Trusts. Now, what does that mean? Well, what does the Director of Charitable Trusts do? But he receives the abandoned estates. Because what happens if you leave something in the bank unattended for 3 years? It's abandoned. Well, the trust called April H. Wayne, or whatever your real name is, I don't know, none of my business, I'm just saying. That is supposed to be taken care of. Now, when you reach 25, you become representative of a man or a woman, and you're supposed to make sure that your declarations are out there. If you're not, John P. Doe of sound mind and body, a creature of God, a free, living, breathing man of the flesh, all that, you're considered to still be an incompetent, and the Attorney General is in control of all of your assets. That's why everything that you have goes to the Director of Charitable Trust. Not to mention all of the swindling and fraud that the judges are doing when you go to traffic court. So they're funneling that money out through the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is nothing but the crown banks and they're operatives of the Vatican. And that's where all your money goes. People think that the Vatican is so rich because people give them money. How dumb is that? Their collection at church barely covers the cost of the archdiocese to operate. the Vatican is taking a huge rake off of everything that comes through the Crown banks, and the arch treasurer for the Vatican is none other than Elizabeth. Right. So, people are so in the dark. It's not even funny.
It's a little funny.
Well, I used to laugh, but now I'm kind of scared because now I have things I have to do for my daughter and my family, so that I can get control of them away from state of. Anything to do that says city of, town of, state of, Constitution of, United States of America. It's all BS. It's all foreign corporation under the UN. Just like you said, the CAFR accounts. People are dumb. They think that their budget, we're running out of budget, so we have to increase the taxes. They don't think about the fact that the budget has nothing to do or any reflection of the holdings of the state. Like if you make $100,000 this year and you put, $500 in your kid's budget and the kid runs out of budget, you don't have to work more because you have, 99,000 minus 500 or 100,000 minus 500. So the people go around thinking, oh, gee, I have to pay more property tax. Well, you're not party to any contract for that. Why are you paying property tax? Well, because you're giving the government a loan, because you're required to, because you're in the Navy. That little guy, that straw man on the birth certificate is in the Navy. He's a shipwrecked sailor. And his salvage is up for grabs, which is another reason you need to kill your Social Security trust. Once you kill that, then all of the Social Security money you paid and your taxes come back to you. You're entitled to it back. You can get it back. It's just going to take you some work. It takes work. So, until you figure out how to get things doing, and I say that it's easy. All you have to do is divert your priorities away from watching the Ellen DeGeneres show and doing that instead. Not everyone likes information. I don't recall the name of the psychological syndrome, but some people will fight an hour rather than learn a 5-minute thing. It's kind of scary. You can spot them. When you give them information before you're even done with your sentence, they're already flapping their mouth and putting up arguments and resistance. The most famous for that are attorneys. No one runs their mouth without thinking more than an attorney.
Isn't that what they're trained for, though?
That's exactly what they're trained for, because they're kept stupid. And I'm not exaggerating. They're kept stupid because that's how they fool you. It's not the attorneys that need to fool you. It's the Bar Association that needs to fool you. Now, let's talk about Article 13, okay? Now, I'm going to use a case that's very well known at the State House, which is where Stella Tremblay, went against the grain and fought and stood firm on this case. And it was in a petition for redress of grievance. Now, if you look at Article 13, it talks about titles of honor, titles of nobility, or titles of emolument. And we could loosely translate that into a special class of people. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, are bar attorneys a special class of people? Yes, they are. Let me explain. Now, the only argument you could possibly have against this, I'm not going to reveal at the moment, because I'm not going to make it easy for you. Did the Supreme Court recently just state that in order to practice before them, you have to be a bar attorney?
Yeah.
All right. Does that not mean that is not a court for people?
Yep. Correct.
So now, to operate in that corporate court, you, or any other court, by the way, you have to be a bar attorney. Also, if someone goes to prosecute you before a grand jury, they need a preponderance of the evidence to convince the grand jury that it's worth looking into to investigate.
Right.
But if you bring a complaint to the Office of Professional Conduct against an attorney. New Hampshire justices, the Supreme Court, sneakingly changed the rules without actually changing the rules, so that you had to bring the complaint to the level of clear and convincing evidence. Now, if that's not a special class of people, I don't know who is. Then they lied about it. So let's go back now. A gentleman named Arthur puts in a petition for Rule 11 because the corruptions in the courts were so bad and the collusion and conflict of interest was so bad, he went to the Supreme Court for them to pull it out of the lower court. Okay, they accepted his petition for Rule 11. And then in the meantime, he started to put the meat of the matter together, the teeth, so to speak, into the case. And what they noticed was that all of their buddies and their colleagues and their friends and their golf partners and their mentors were all the ones implicated in this petition. So the impeached Justice Brock was the one that they put in charge of screening the incoming cases after his petition for Rule 11 was accepted. So what did he do? He threw it out for no real valid reason. In fact, he did it in an unlawful way, in an unethical way. And they did that to protect each other. And all of those people who kept their mouths shut and played ball all got promotions. The Department of Justice was implicated. Judge Nicolosi was promoted. A Judge Landria McCaffrey was given a job as a federal magistrate. You have all kinds of problems stemming from that. And then he went to federal court, and that got kicked out. Then he went to the First Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston. And just as soon as they killed his petition at the State House, all but Stella, the very next day, their insiders at the bar reported it to the U.S. District Court, and then they threw it out. So Arthur ran out of steam, mostly because of his bar attorney wife. And he gave up the pursuit, which is a travesty, but that's the nature of that beast anyway. So Article 13's requirement is alive and well, and what necessitates it isn't so much the U.S. Constitution, but the fact that the individual state constitutions need to post it, because it was ratified, and it is supposed to be in your state constitution. Regardless of the fact that you're involved or affiliated, I shouldn't use the word involved because that has a special meaning, with being state of or United States, you have a republic of Pennsylvania, right. Republic of Commonwealth, whatever you want to call it. That state constitution is supposed to be held sacred, but it's not. They have trained, the Bar Association has trained all of the representatives to work in the direction of state of only, and all the republics have been abandoned. Now, let me ask you, did you get a chance to download a 71-page document that I sent to you on Skype? It is the bar affidavit from the former Speaker of the House of the Republic of Texas.
No, I don't have anything on Skype, honey.
Okay, I will send it to you again. I'm sure I sent it to you, but you might have failed if my computer went into sleep mode, what have you. I'll send that to you also. It's a 71-page affidavit written by Glenn Winningham, and anyone who reads that, if they don't have a clue after that, they might as well just go back to, I don't know, whatever mundane menial task they have for the day. Because it's full of stuff that puts it all together, much of what I'm describing to you today. And it's public record, it's public policy, therefore, it's accepted, it's acquiesced, it's consented. It's an affidavit, matured, period. The whole situation is as grave as I'm describing it. And I keep saying it over and over again because I hope it works its way into people. The Bar Association is the enemy. they made you the enemy. They are treating you like the enemy. They are at war against you. Whenever a policeman flips on his blue lights for code enforcement, he's breaking the law. When he flips on his blue lights to pull a traveler over, he's violating his oath of office and is no longer protected within his sphere of immunity. And when two or more police flip on their blue lights, it is now conspiracy to commit fraud and felony, which is treason, high treason. And
that also brings in Title 42, 1983, 1984, 1986.
Yeah, all that.
250,000 FRNs for each violation.
Yeah, but you don't want
of rights and per person, per committer.
Over.
Well, I'll take the 250 FRNs because I know that those work just fine for now.
Well,
and I can convert those into silver if I choose.
You can go to their bank and cash it for U.S. Treasury notes and take buy silver. Because by law, $1 is still silver. That's it. Those Federal Reserve notes are military script. And like I said, a 1040 form is a concealed contract that you are a government employee. That's why you never want to fill out a 1040 form. Because it's all contract law. Here's what happens. Dumbass sees the 1040 form and it says list taxpayer. So what does dumbass do? Dumbass puts his name down there. Well,
Mr. Dumbass?
Who's the dumbass? Whoever signs his name on that. Right. So there's contract stage 1. Stage 2, list income. What does dumbass do? Well, that's the
income. Without knowing the definition of income. Because if you go to IRS code, because I'm actually mapping this out to prove to people that they don't actually owe.
Correct.
But if you go to the
exports and excises.
Yeah, but when you go to look up the definition of income, it says see gross income.
Right.
Well, anybody who has half of a brain knows you cannot define something by using the very same words that you're defining. Define cat. It's a cat that has or may or may not have hair.
Well,
what?
The gross
I still don't know what a cat is.
Gross income, once again, is the redundancy in the income. You don't have income.
Wages are not income because you are you're doing an equal value of exchange.
All right. Let me substantiate what you're saying. Go back a couple of hundred years when all men lived free on the land. They lived in ministry because you minister your energy for your own use. And you create a government to administer your problems for you. Where did I ever minister my energy over to them to be my guardian? I didn't. Not knowingly, so it's fraud.
Right.
So you have to live in ministry. So once you set up where you live in ministry, now you don't pay property taxes. You follow? Yep. Now, to live in ministry or as a sovereign or one of the sovereign people, you can't do it on paper only. You have to put it on the land. And to put it on the land, you have to form a ministerial covenant of your neighbors who are like-minded, and you must all be each other's keeper. And then, of course, the sheriff is going to find out about you. And you have to explain to him that you set up your own township. What they have is a corporation based in the United Nations. They have no say over you. And you're there to live in peace and according to law. Now, I keep using the Wizard of Oz as an example because the Wizard of Oz is all about this. Because in the beginning of the movie, everything was in black and white. And what's black and white? The law. Everyone had a Bible and everyone had a copy of the Constitution. The Constitution is for them, not you. So, what has happened now is because of the 14th Amendment citizenship, no one is in ministry now. And if you look at any movie that was made, any old show, well, you have to deal with the law and you have to deal with the marshal and all this and that. That's all post-1871. That's when they started to enforce all of this BS and force you into doing things that you didn't want to do. But it was always by consent. They had no right to force you. Any state that didn't go along with the Reconstruction, which was forced at gunpoint, was either overthrown or they had to acquiesce. Like Tennessee. Tennessee kept their governor because he acquiesced. He didn't fight it. All the others fought it. Lincoln was killed. A lot of presidents were killed. If you read the book, The Vatican Assassins, you'll see how the Vatican did it all. Most recently, provably anyway, was JFK. JFK wrote Executive Order 11110 so that $50 billion in gold, I believe gold and silver, would be put up so that silver certificates would be used through the Treasury, not through the Federal Reserve. And that was one of the 5 mortal sins that he committed, and that helped get him killed. They will take out whoever gets in their way. And right now, though, they have a lot of problems. The new Pope can't even set foot off the Vatican without fear of being arrested by the people.
Well, the one that just resigned, he can't leave because there are plenty of charges against him. So he's actually a prisoner within the Vatican now.
Yeah, well, factually speaking, he resigned a year ago in March. He just didn't leave office. He actually resigned a year ago. Most people don't know that, but that's Joseph Ratzinger, a Hitler Youth. Changed his name to Benedict, Order of the Olive. Oh my God. Yeah, he was a complete dirtball. He's gone. Now, for the first time in history, ever, both the Black Pope and the Pope that everyone knows about, they were both replaced before they were sick, dead, dying, or too old. And they're both replaced by Jesuits, of course. The Black Pope is the Jesuit general. He actually runs everything in the Vatican. And the White Pope, they call him, the new one, he's a Jesuit now. So that's a sign. If anyone who knows anything about what I'm talking about right now knows that if both popes, that's a sign that something big and nasty is getting ready to happen. This is wartime coming up. So.
Will that war be declared by Congress? That's the question.
Well, no. Congress cannot declare a war because there's no Congress. It is a foreign corporation. They have absolutely nothing but fraud working against them, and I believe, to quote someone else, that all the bar attorneys should be put on a giant ship and shipped overseas back to the City of London. City of London is the crown, or the almost 2 square miles in the middle of London, which is...
Well, let's clarify that. All the attorneys who want to remain being attorneys.
Or to remain in the bar.
Yeah.
You want to have some fun? Let's clarify it. Handwrite a contract and give it to an attorney, and in the contract it says that he will put his client, you, above the bar and the judge. Mm-hmm. And he will immediately withdraw. Because his oath is to the bar, not you. Because you're a ward of the state. If you hire an attorney, you are an absolute jackass. I'm sorry if anyone has ever hired an attorney and they don't know that, but you have basically forfeited your estate trust over to them. Yeah. You became co-trustee. Because if he's a ward of the state, if you're a ward of the state and the attorney is an officer of the court, which is an officer of the state, then you become a co-trustee because the state is the trustee. So they swindled you. So as soon as an attorney allows you to hire him, he just shoved it up your you-know-what. And he's just not going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Right. They monetize your signature. Most people don't know that when they go to buy a house, that signature that they put on that alleged mortgage is the security. They create a security. And the mortgage company cannot even make a copy of that and bring it into the court, because that's securities fraud. And they certainly can't sell it on the open market. So,
and it's supposed to stay with the mortgage, but they separate them, and there's a whole huge fraud going on with that whole thing.
Well, they run to the window at the Federal Reserve and collect the $500,000 deposit, which is a Tier 1 asset that you created with your signature.
Yeah.
Then they put on the open market for another $500,000 plus whatever the interest, what have you.
Yeah.
And then you didn't know that within 3 years you can go and get all of that money for yourself because you created it. And then you can buy the property with silver, or to convert it to land. Excuse me.
Right.
Right. So if you have silver, you have money. You know, if you get dragged into a court, pull out some silver and a Bible and watch the judge run out of the courtroom. I'm betting, I can't prove it, but I'm betting I have the record in New Hampshire for the most judges getting up and running out of a courtroom. They abandon ship right then and there once they start dropping bombs on them. I say stuff like, who do you work for? They'll say state of New Hampshire. And I'll say to the prosecutor, who do you work for? State of New Hampshire. The complaint is from state of New Hampshire. So obviously I'm not in a judicial court, am I? I'm not in a constitutional court.
You can't get a fair trial either because of the conflict of interest. They're both getting their paychecks from the same guy who's coming after you.
It's not a court. It's not a court. It's called a court. Like I said, me and April, me and you, we can form a corporation, call it McDonald's, and we can call French fries court. We can call beverages Senate. We can call hamburgers legislature or House of Representatives. We can call the guy at the cash register the president. We can call it whatever we want. You and I can form a contract for that hairless green cat, and it's your refrigerator. So from now on, whenever we refer to a hairless green cat, we know that we're talking about a refrigerator. All terms are defined in contract.
Yeah.
Right. So people have got to understand or comprehend the fact that they have to unlearn everything that they think. It's all nonsense. It's my favorite bumper sticker. Don't believe everything you think. Right. That's my very favorite bumper sticker. And
Santa Claus is not real.
Santa Claus is dead, I was told when I was young. Imagine Santa Claus is dead.
Santa Claus died.
Well, I had never forgotten that moment. That had a profound and lasting impact on my life when somebody said, Santa Claus is dead. I couldn't believe that. Wouldn't you know, the guy that said that to me turned out to be one of the straightest guys I've ever met. He just used his humorous little remedy for everything. Mm-hmm. Right. I don't know if anything that I've said or done has been a benefit to you and your show, but there's more coming. There's more coming. Stella Tremblay is going to live in infamy, and I'm gonna put legs and wings on her.
You can actually say hi to her. She's listening.
Really?
Yes.
Stella Tremblay. Like, do you know what a dog soldier is? I don't know if Stella knows what a dog soldier is. A dog soldier is that Indian brave, the warrior. He throws his blanket on the ground in his village. And he stands there, and he does not leave that blanket. He fights to the death. That's Stella. That's Stella. Stella is nothing but respectable.
Yeah.
I don't want to go on laying her on too thick now that I know that she's listening. But put it this way, I can say this much to her. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Stella, if you need anything, you know where to find help. Call me. I'll stop whatever I'm doing.
She is awesome, though.
More than words awesome can describe.
Yeah.
She's a piece of America. She's part of America. She knows more about being an American than people who were born here. Yeah.
I would not disagree with that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't actually want to waste your time listening to me. I'm just I'm beginning to think that I'm an infinitesimally small speck in the eye of the universe. We have trouble. I have to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish Stella would run again. I really do. I wish she never resigned. I understand why, but I wish she didn't. There is no doubt about one thing, and I've forwarded some of it to you, and maybe your guests can hear this, but the thing that they used to embarrass Stella was her comment that she had questions. She wished to question the validity of the news that was broadcast to the people about the Boston Marathon bombing.
Yeah.
Well, one thing is for sure. She was right. And it's coming out more every day. There are more operatives spotted in that area doing things, and crisis actors and FEMA people and all kinds of nasty stuff going on. Why in the world would anyone want to bomb the Boston Marathon? Especially Boston. Hello. Boston is already in the tank for the pink communist world. You don't have to fight too hard to twist the arms of Bostonians to be for the de facto government.
Well, we saw that when they went and raided all the houses without a warrant. Come on in!
Oh, yeah.
Let me to the ground. It's okay. I know it's for my own good.
That's all part of the conditioning process. They want a regular set of things going on. Now, did you see the Anderson Cooper videos that I sent to you about the father and the Sandy Hook shooting? He's crying, talking about the terrible tragedy. And then the same guy, there he is on another camera that shows him laughing and joking.
Yeah, I made a video of that.
Yeah, and then he goes over to the other...
Talking about Robbie Parker.
Yeah, he goes over to the other camera and starts inducing his sorrow and tears. Now,
yeah.
You know,
he came out all happy and joyful and giddy, and then he says, "Oh, you want me to start now? Okay." And he, he preps himself.
Wood?
Hello?
Are you familiar with Dr. Judy Wood?
Yeah.
Okay, she was just on the Pete Santilli show yesterday. Now, did you know that two of the people killed in the Virginia Tech shootings were her helpers?
No.
Proving that what was going on as she said it? The whole 911 thing. Now, there's a sensitive subject for people. Talk about government scams. It's not a government. But you know that there was time for China to get its gold back just before that happened, right? And the gold was under there, and how they found trucks had been scrambling to get the gold out from under there.
Wow.
Did you know that Marvin Bush was the head of electronic security and the insurance and all that of the building?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know that Silverstein took out $3.5 billion worth of terrorism insurance just weeks before that?
Yeah, on Building 7, the building that was never hit.
Oh, no, on the towers he had the insurance. But he's the one who called for Building 7 to be pulled. Pulled meaning demolished. Now,
right, but there was a huge insurance put onto that Building 7 weeks before.
Yeah, well, it was all of them. He tried to capitalize twice on the $3.5 billion, saying it was two separate attacks. Now, let's talk about conspiracy theory. Now, and I put this out yesterday, but anyone who uses the term conspiracy theory just admitted to you that they're lost, all right? They don't read, they don't think, they don't have the ability to think. They think that everything is a coincidence. You know, all a conspiracy is if two or more people talk about how to break the law together. If they don't think that people who are running the show conspire to do things, they're sorely mistaken, and I would say that statement of saying that someone is a conspiracy theorist, they basically consigned themselves to oblivion, which is self-made idiots, really, is what it is. The conspiracy theory is a skinny guy named Osama bin Laden living in caves in Afghanistan orchestrated 20 Saudis with drywall knives or box knives with razor blades to hijack 5 jetliners after they took flight lessons and flew them into the towers and the Pentagon and a place in Pennsylvania, which, 80-something cameras on the side of the Pentagon where this alleged plane hit and not one video of it. Now, anyone who believes that those towers went straight down into their basements at free fall speed from jet fuel obviously hasn't caught on to the fact that their barbecue grill hasn't gone straight down into its footprint either. It's just total absurdity. The entire country skipped physics class that day, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Bush said, when I saw the first plane hit the tower, I said, boy, that guy sure wasn't a good pilot. Well, no one saw the first plane hit the tower on camera. Right? Dick Cheney was in charge of NORAD that day, and there was supposedly a drill, just like the Boston Marathon. So, not only was Stella Tremblay onto something, and I don't even think she really claimed anything. I think she was asking questions from where I could see it. She was looking for answers. So they just used that to create a problem for her. And a lot of the people in the Republican Party kind of turn their backs because they're really not Republicans. They're not conservatives at all. They're rhinos. The State House in New Hampshire is a mess. It's a bloody, bleeding, awful, god-awful mess of Democrats and rhinos, which, you have what you have. They do nothing but produce bills and resolutions so as to restrict the rights of people and the movement of people. Somehow, some way, the Stella's action has to come to do something of a much higher purpose somehow. My God.
We need more Stellas is the answer.
Where are they? You're going to have to get them from somewhere else because they're certainly not in New Hampshire. In New Hampshire, you have what you call the Free State Project, which is a nationwide thing for people who want to create change in government to move to New Hampshire. And the goal is supposed to be when it reaches 20,000, they're all going to move here. Thousands of them have already moved here, and a lot of them are actually in the State House as reps. But they don't know anything about what you and I are talking about right now, and they fight hard to resist learning it. They don't understand. They don't get it. If you're going to live as a free state, you have to be out of the UN. And you would think that Agenda 21 being foisted upon us would wake them up, but it's very difficult. So I have to watch them carefully because they could be infiltrated also by worms and moles. People who come in, like people who run as, in New Hampshire, they actually brag about how they run as Republicans, but they're really Democrats. They brag about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can spot them pretty easily when you call them rhino. They get pretty upset. And you look at their voting record. Their voting record is just awful.
Yep. We've got about 30 seconds left, honey.
Okay.
The time has flown.
Well, I guess you're going to have to spend it saying goodbye.
Well, you're going to have to come back, and we'll go through more solutions on what folks can do.
Well, after you see some of what I'm going to send you today, then you can talk about that, and we can go on and expand upon it, sure.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to close us out here with, let's see, Mr. Freak and the Freak Show with Revolution. You guys got about maybe a minute. Or, no, I think we're going off air now.
Oh, my.